Welcome to the HP Advisors presentation on how to run really truly an effective team meeting using your KPIs. This is powered by BlueIQ. I am your host, Dr. Corey Frogley. I am the co-founder and CEO of BlueIQ and just excited to be with you today. Hopefully many of you are holding team meetings, and so let's dive into this so that we can really clearly go through the purpose and the flow and just how to engage a team so that team becomes the driving force behind the growth of the practice. We work with hundreds of consultants who I hear them say all the time that a practice cannot reach its full potential without consistent team meetings. So this is that process, and when we go forward with the team meeting, we really want to make sure that it's based around some solid principles, and one of those being that you as the doctor understand really the 5 financial driving engines behind the practice, because when we assign a team member to be the driver behind one of these engines, then it's them who bring to the team meeting the key things, the key performance of that engine and how things are moving forward. So our whole meeting is kind of centered around this concept that it's driving the growth of the practice. Now, let me be clear that our practices are patient-centric. And the whole experience, creating the experience for the patient coming into the practice and how we treat them and how we interact with them is all about that, the patient. The byproduct of doing so should be a growing, thriving, profitable practice. The principles that we're teaching here today are not the focus in front of the patient or the focus of the team meeting. They're the foundational understanding principles that if we do the patient-centric right, that these engines will be healthy and growing. So we're going to cover those 5 financial engines and helping understand that, how to watch them and watch the performance of those so that we can measure how effective we are at delivering care to the patient and the patient experience and the team's job and the role of all of that. So that's really the underlying, role of that. So then we go into, well, who's acknowledged? Because everybody, as we look at research and studies, the employees want to know how they can measure their contribution to the practice. They want to feel recognized. And so this is, how do we acknowledge the responsible person or people that's then pushing the practice forward? And then who has action plans? What are the action plans that we are walking away from the meeting with clear direction on what we're implementing and what needs to be reported in the next team meeting? So all of that is being covered today. By the end of this webinar, you're going to have a solid foundation of how to make your team meetings that much more powerful. So your role as the leader in these team meetings is to approve, correct, or delegate. How you do those things are vital, and as a leader, that needs to be your character traits. So let's go into these 5 financial engines and get a better understanding of what they are. The first one that drives the growth of a practice is your marketing. So remember, we have 2 doors to a practice: the front door, which is your marketing, the back door, which is your retention. Both doors need to be healthy and doing their jobs. The front door is open, the back door is closed. So when we're allowing new patients to come into the practice, we're measuring this KPI of just what's the number. And depending on what phase of growth or phase of life your practice is in, if it's a young practice, we need an extremely healthy marketing system. If you're an older practice and you already have great retention, you're not going to need new patients as much. And so the number of new patients coming into your practice on a monthly basis, that really needs to be determined by you to set the benchmark of that number that needs to be going in. Now, each one of these financial engines, this is the KPI, right? The key performance indicator of that financial engine. But there's levers, there's lead metrics that need to be pushed on daily to drive a healthy monthly KPI. Now, this webinar, unfortunately, isn't going to cover all of those. We're going to get into those into our future webinars, but just learning how to measure them and think in these terms is what this webinar is designed to do. So the next financial driver is your KPI that's measuring case acceptance. Now, there's two ways I want you to think about your case acceptance. I want to think about the number of cases presented and then the number of cases accepted. We look at that percentage. Then we look at the percentage of dollars presented versus the number of dollars accepted and scheduled. Now, many of you are presenting, of course, your highest case dollar value to a patient, and then sometimes there's a plan B, sometimes there's even a plan C. And so in our patient management software, there's just a lot of different plans in there. And when we looked at all of those unscheduled treatment plans, there's just unbelievable amount of money sitting there. But it's not real money because maybe a patient went with plan B instead of plan A. So the way we really want to measure that is the top dollar value plan presented. So if it's a $7,000 plan and they ended up going with plan B that was $5,400, we still want to see that a assistant or a case presenter that they presented the $7,000 plan. They just didn't end up closing them on a $7,000 plan. So this tells us how our patient education is doing. This tells us how well we're doing in removing barriers for entrance to case acceptance. And that's why these two numbers are important. It's the percent of cases accepted, but then it's also the percent of dollars accepted and scheduled. Then we look at the schedule. This is just looking at percent kept appointments, both in hygiene and doctor, and then also your percent recare. And that drives our front desk schedule, our overall schedule. Of course, production is the fourth financial driver. If we can't produce it, we can't collect it. So we want to look at total adjusted production. And then the last KPI, the fifth one, is your percent of adjusted production collected. This gives us a very good indication on how well our financial team is doing at keeping up on AR. Now, there is a sixth financial engine, and that is something that HP Advisors is fantastic at working with you on. They're the driving force behind your sixth financial engine, and that's controlling your overhead and scaling your profit margin. We're not going to dive into that today. They're the experts on that, and so we'll focus on these five. So in a team meeting, this is important that within BlueIQ, we have these numbers to look at. And you'll notice at the bottom of that new patient card, at the bottom right-hand corner, there's KD. Those are the initials of the person that's the driving force behind this financial engine, this growth engine. Each one of these metrics can be assigned to a team member. That's important because of the accountability factor. Not only does it make it clear to the team member who is the responsible person for driving that forward, but it's clear in the organization, it's clear in the whole team who has this. Now, they may have other people that are helping them. We just want to be clear that they can't pass blame. And what I mean by that is that when three people are assigned to a system, this could be front desk system, back office system, it's important that as the owner that you know who the person that's going to take responsibility is. They're not going to pass the blame, because if we give the role to three people and we don't designate the one person that is the reporter, the reporting factor behind it, then it's just easy to come to team meeting and say, I don't know why that's having a problem. I thought Mary had this, or I thought Julie was on top of this. So by making sure that the team member is clear that they're the ones driving this, then they come to team meeting prepared. They're coming to team meeting to report this. So when we have all of the financial drivers assigned to the right team members, then what we're doing is we're preparing team meeting in a flow. And the beginning of that flow is that when we sit down, the very first thing that we do is we go through the reporting of these financial engines on the monthly goal, where we are at month to date, are we on track, are we not, and if we're not, a clear reporting of what is in place to get us there. Now, this is not coming from the office manager. This is not coming from the owner. This is coming from the team member that's assigned to driving this system in your practice. This is what brings the team together, because each team member has a role, no different than each team member of a basketball team or each team member of a football team. That it's just clear the roles that each person is playing, and again, that we've trained them in a way that they're coming to the team meeting already looking at the data, already analyzing the data, already identifying the performance level of the data, and then what they need to prepare for to come to team meetings. So I think it's pretty important that on a central calendar, the day before team meeting, that an alert goes out to prepare for team meeting. That way they can put together their thoughts, they can analyze the data, they can put together the action plans that need to be in place. Now, obviously, if we're doing daily huddle correctly, they're pretty aware. They're pretty aware of what needs to be done. So when they report that now, it's time to acknowledge. And again, we want a practice that's a positivity culture practice. And the last thing we want to do is this to be a browbeating session. That's not the intention here. And again, it's patient-centric. We're celebrating the victories of what's happening with the patient. So if it's new patient coming in, if it's case acceptance, we're celebrating the patients that are accepting care. We're doing a good job of helping the patient get to their care, get it done, because we know what that's going to do for the patient. So we're always acknowledging, we're looking for opportunities to celebrate something great that a team member did. We're celebrating those who are achieving their goals, those who are close. We're celebrating their action plans to get there. We're always pointing out the positivity. And research shows that small rewards pay off. So you have a choice. You can do your team meetings weekly, or you can do them every other week. I've seen them done both ways. It works both ways. It just depends on how busy your practice is, how well established it is. The newer your practice is, I highly recommend doing it weekly. The more established and the closer your practice is to your vision, well, I would actually say it that way. The further you are from your vision, the more often you need to have them. The closer you are to your established vision and that becoming real, then the less you can get away with every other week. But I would not do them less than every other week. So that's what we're trying to do, is these rewards. So as team members come, these are just fun, small rewards. They can be, well, I'm going to leave that up to HP on how you should do that, because are they taxable or are they not? But these are small. These are just acknowledgments in a way. And then let's set targets for bigger rewards. These bigger rewards can be, the whole team going to lunch together, the whole team going bowling together, the whole team having an in-office something. This can be cash reward. This is a bigger reward. So let's set those targets. Let's make them achievable. Obviously, we want to do that within a time frame. And so we're clear on setting. We want to be to this point by this time. That's important. But again, if we get there, that's also important. So if the time frame was 90 days and we get there in 100 days, there's still got to be a celebration. And maybe the reward's not quite as big, but should be pretty darn close. And again, we're motivating the team that way. So as we go on to our action plans then, this is the vital part, that the team member is coming to the table with what needs to be done in order to drive the metrics. So again, we're assigning that system and the practice to a team member. They know they're assigned to it. They're training. It's patient-centric. And we're explaining to the team member, this is just a measurement of how well we're executing the patient experience. That's how we're framing this for the team. Now, the team member comes with the report of the metric. Obviously, ideally, you're having it up on a screen, just like what I showed, and those metrics are there, and we'll even be able to drill into them, and I'll show you how that flows in a second. If the metric's behind, they are coming with a solution. They have an action plan already written down. It's a written action plan. They need to come to this team meeting, let me be clear, with a written action plan to submit to the office manager or to the owner. And this action plan is just, here's where we are, here's where we should be, here's why we're not there, here's how we're going to get there. Hopefully that's clear. Now, I want to make sure that the colors in BlueIQ make sense to everybody. So let me just review that quickly. In the blue means that this is time to recess the goal and reward the person who keeps it in the blue. So if this is new patients and it's in the blue, that's fantastic. This is a time to celebrate that, reward the person that's got us there, and probably bump up the goal. And that's the last thing you want to do is change any of the systems that's gotten you into the blue. And you want to clearly identify why you got into the blue and reinforce those training principles in your systems. Winning in the green, don't change anything. Continue to do what you're doing. Continue to identify what you're doing right that got you there, and continue to reinforce those principles, and just continue to strip out anything that would distract you from that reoccurring. Losing momentum, which is yellow, this is typically a focus issue. The team just isn't focused on it. The systems are there, but they're getting off track somewhere, and this is important to talk through that. How do we focus on this and make sure that we're pushing this forward and getting it into the green? And then losing red, this is an issue. This is something that's broken. Either the system's broken or the team members broken. I don't like to use that term, but they're not implementing this properly. So this is something that would be wise for an office manager to watch them do their job for a little bit. Just have that conversation. Let me just see what you're doing and see if I can help you figure this out of why it's not producing the results that we want it to produce. It's not okay for them to come and be losing or in the red week after week after week. Like, we've got to identify this and help them fix it. That's so important for morale. That's so important. And then celebrate with them when they do. Like, make a huge deal about this when they go from red to yellow. Like a huge deal. So those are all the highlighted parts of action plans within this. And this really all comes back down to your leadership. How often are you making your vision of the practice known? Is it written somewhere? Do you talk about the practice often? Because if we don't talk about the destination of the practice frequently, how does the team know how to get you there? And that's what BlueIQ is designed to do, is much more than just an analytic dashboard. This is helping you establish a destination and then clearly break it down with steps of how to get there. Recruit your team to help you make it real. Your team members are the ones that you are delegating to and helping you materialize the vision. And how you motivate them is vital. It's how you're acknowledging them and how you celebrate them and how you're allowing their creativity to grow and solve problems. This is why they bring the solutions to the team meeting. They're not showing up to the team meeting to listen to the office manager again or listen to the boss again. They're just going to yap at us for an hour. This is the opportunity for them to be highly engaged and creative in solving problems. So your roles are to inspire, to delegate, to approve or provide recommendations to their action plans, and follow up, follow up, follow up. So that means you have to have a note-taking capability in your team meeting. You should have a journal, a spiral-bound notebook, an electronic device, something that's capturing the very things that you need to follow up on next team meeting, because once everybody's reported, it is now your turn to follow up with, here's what you were going to do last week. How did it come? How did it work out? What was the results? And then how can we improve upon that? We've got to, just keep all of ourselves accountable to each other. We've got to be accountable to ourselves. And so when we delegate something, if we don't follow up, it's not on them. It's not their fault. It's our fault because we didn't, really delegate in those actions. So I'm going to jump over to now the dashboards. And as we run through team meeting, this is what we're seeing. So again, we break it down to the financial engines, the marketing engine, the scheduling engine, the case acceptance engine, the production engines, and the financial engines. And of course, HP helps you with your executive overhead. So remember, your dashboards are built in a way that your KPI, the key performance indicator, should be on this left top corner. We leave that open so we can kind of see the daily production of that. We can clearly see where we are in the goal tracking. So you can go into your metric settings, click on goals, and set that benchmark. There's the color scheme behind it. We can now see the days of performance, and we can also see where we are in the month to date. So if today was team meeting, this would be losing momentum. Like, we're not quite there. What are we going to do to get there? And then everything else on the screen are lead metrics that contribute to the KPI. If these are healthy, these should be helping this become healthy. When we go to front desk, there's your hygiene reappointment. We also look at kept appointment percentage. As we go to case acceptance, there's our percent of cases presented. Now, notice that these are manual metrics because it's very hard to pull this data out of Eaglesoft or Dentrix or Open Dental. It's stuff that we would rather have the team member responsible. And if you have multiple case presenters, then I would have metrics for each case presenter. And these are easy to build. And when we build a manual metric, which is as simple as going in here, building a standard metric and clicking manual entry here, we can produce these metrics. And if you click on the number, we can now go in and enter the number of cases that we presented today. And here's the number of people who accepted cases today at any level of acceptance. So even if it wasn't the highest plan, this tells us how well we're doing in converting people. This tells us how well we're doing at removing obstacles to care. So again, we click on it, we put in the dollar total highest plan dollars for the day. And then this is the total dollars that were then accepted and scheduled. That gives us that percentage. This should be somewhere above 90. This should be somewhere above, 84. If it gets too high, if I see 100%, that tells me you aren't presenting very big plans. You're probably leaving money on the table. In the hygiene team, we see the hygiene adjusted production. We can break this down by the provider if you have multiple hygienists in the team. And then again, here's all your lead metrics that are contributing to this. Same with doctor. This is allowing you to see the different metrics that are driving within the doctor production. And then, of course, financial. There's our percent of production collected. Now, it's adjusted production, and that should be pretty dang high. We should be 95% or more. So on this, I just put in here the flow of all of these KPIs. A true executive dashboard is going to be missing your QuickBooks data from HP. And that's what's beautiful about working with HP is they're helping you with this dashboard. Because then you're going to see all of your expenses, you're going to see your budgets. But look at how beautiful this dashboard is to look at this and know that you're on track in the greens, you're in the blue on certain ones, and then we've got one that's losing and a few that are losing momentum. But easy to correct these yellow ones. It's the red ones that we've been really want to dive in and drill into and correct. So in the team meeting, if you don't want to share specific metrics, again, that's up to you. You can build a dashboard for team meeting that has the exact data that you want. The goal is that we're sharing the financial drivers to the practice that's measuring how well we're delivering care to our patients, how well we're executing our jobs in this practice that is thriving and growing and has a clear vision, and we're clearly marching towards that. And these team meetings are a time to come together, and you and the office manager's role is to know before the team meeting where the weaknesses are, anticipate action plans being turned in, anticipate getting ready to approve, correct, or retrain on those, and then follow through with some training either from the previous team meeting or the current team meeting, knowing that there's some significant training that needs to be done. So the majority of your team meeting then is spent training. You're spending maybe 30 minutes doing this and 60 minutes training, or 20 minutes doing this and 40 minutes training, depending on how long your team meetings are. BlueIQ truly helps you get laser focused on the weak links in the practice. It brings a team culture of clarity together. It helps us all unify towards the vision and have clarity of just what we need to work on. This isn't designed to, again, to slap hands or point out people that are struggling. It's to support them. It's to train them. It's to help them, and to make sure, again, we're delivering beautiful patient-centric care. This has been BlueIQ. Grateful to have you with us. And in a couple weeks, we're going to be back with our next webinar that will continue this mastering the fundamentals of a profitable practice. I hope you'll join me in a couple weeks. And again, thank you for joining us today.